So anyway, well, John, thank you for coming on the podcast. This is an exciting series that we're having this time around because this is people that, Brian and I haven't worked with before. And, we're kind of, we've met with you before and we know you from the community, but, you're not somebody that we've worked with a lot. And so this is really fun to have somebody on just to say, hey, what does John think about this stuff? So tell us, who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, and really glad to. I think this is the third podcast I've ever been on.
Oh wow, okay.
So I've done a lot, but I haven't been a guest,
right?
On many at all. But I'm John Barnes, and I have a firm, Pendleton Street Advisors, and we essentially are financial advisors to businesses and business owners, helping them with a lot of make or break financial decisions, helping them understand their business as an investment and not just their job or their paycheck. Because we know that at some point that business probably needs to do something other than be their paycheck. They're going to have to turn that, they're going to sell that investment or do something with it so they can do the next thing that they want to do. Sometimes it's retirement. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to start another one, or I want to do a big charitable thing or something like that. And so we help them get ready for that moment.
Gotcha. What's aspirational for some businesses for it to be your paycheck? At some levels, you're like, I wish it could be my paycheck.
Yeah.
So
that's for sure.
It's an interesting place to be. So how did you get into doing this?
It is pretty roundabout. So I went to college. I'm from North Carolina, graduated, went to work for a bank, Wachovia, that doesn't exist anymore. Worked there for 8 years. And while I was doing that work, which I really loved, and I had great bosses, and I was massively overpaid relative to my level of experience. I'd always been invested in or interested in personal finance. And I kind of cut my teeth on the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and Motley Fool, like from way back, and even stuff that my dad was an accountant, and so he taught me how to read financial statements at a young age, and I thought it was kind of neat because most people like hanging out with their dad, and that was one of the things we did together. But I didn't know how to turn that into a job. So I just took my time with it. I knew that I would need to change careers. I did not want to become a stockbroker. That was all that I knew about in terms of how you help people with their personal finances. And the reason I didn't want to be a stockbroker, one, I felt like the incentives were really bad, and two, I'm not from here. And so it's all about, make a list of 500 people that know your name that will talk to you and call them and try to, sell them something. And I just didn't have that. I probably didn't know 20 people, that I could do that for. So one thing at a time, I knew I needed some education. I went and did the Certified Financial Planner program at the Darla Moore School that was offered as a night class, two nights a week. You have to take this class for about an academic year, and then that makes you eligible to take the exam to become that. And so I took a year to take the test. I still have my day job. I took the exam 3 times, twice when I was still at the bank. And then I passed on my third go when I actually had changed jobs. But what got me to change jobs and to start a career in this was one of the teachers in that program. It was all adjunct faculty. So there were no university professors. They were all people who did this for a living. And one of the guys who taught the investments portion, his name was Bill McAfee. He had a firm that was basically our predecessor firm, WHM Capital Advisors. And the way that Bill taught about investments is he would tell stories from the work that he did with his clients that were business owners, the exact same work that we do. And I thought, that sounds really neat. He's not dialing for dollars. He's helping people with that it seems really need the help, and they're happy to pay for that help. So when his section of the class was completed, and I made a really good grade in that, I just invited him to lunch, and we talked for 3 hours that first day. And it was kind of, kindred spirits get together. That firm was really he himself and an assistant. And I became I think it was the third employee of the firm.
Wow.
But that was a 2-year process. I met him in 2005, and I didn't go there until 2007. So even that took kind of a, it wasn't a, short distance kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you stumbled into that, you kind of said, "Oh, this is what I need to be doing."
Yeah, I mean, it blended what I had learned in banking, so I could talk to business owner. Or I was fluent in finance, if you will. Had a background in that, but I also was able to take the stuff that I learned about investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, kind of the financial planning process, and we were weaving all of that together for a business owner. Most business owners totally cringe when they think about financial planning because they think that's what it is about, that it is about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, life insurance.
Yeah.
And that's a part, but what made Bill's firm special, not only in my mind, but people paid for it, so the market confirmed it, is you're helping me with something that's near and dear to me, which is my business. It is my largest asset. There are no financial planners that do this kind of work. Even my banker really doesn't do this kind of work. My CPA sort of does this work from one lane only, and that's income taxes. Yeah. And even my attorney, help me get set up, or if I'm getting sued or something, but they're not, a day-to-day advisor.
Right. Yeah. So that's awesome. And I think it's something that's super needed, and frankly, every time I see your posts on LinkedIn, I'm like, what does that mean? And I go, I should know this already. I'm a business owner for golly's sake. I should know this already. Yeah. Like, what is that acronym? Like I just several times I've had to post, comment on your LinkedIn post. I go, remind me what that acronym is, so that I can follow what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting thing. Do you work primarily with business owners, or how does that situation work? Is it like larger businesses? What is that like for you?
So yes, all of our clients either are business owners or they used to be business owners. So everybody starts as a business owner.
Gotcha.
There are a few rare exceptions, but we haven't done much of that in the last 5 years.
Okay, I gotcha.
So so they get to a point. A lot of times when people are hiring us, they get to a point to where they're like, wait a second, I've grown revenue. It is more than a paycheck for me. I feel like I'm doing all the right things that my peers agree with, that my, outside Vistage group or C12 or a group like that, I get high fives from everyone, but something's off. This really hurts financially. What is the problem? And so people approach us from that side. Also, people approach us from kind of a timing standpoint where they have had a career, kind of a career length of time, say 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and they realize, I never started this to be my retirement plan, but this is now my retirement plan.
Yeah.
Oh God, what do I have?
Yeah.
And what they're really afraid of is they make a good living now, as a business owner. Good paycheck, good dividends, business is paying for, various aspects of their life. But what they're afraid of is if the music stops. In other words, if they didn't have the business, would they have enough to continue on with no disruption in standard of living?
Right.
Because that's everybody's kind of dream of quote unquote retirement, whether you're a school teacher or Bill Gates. Like, can I not work and still do the same stuff I was doing when I was working? And so they hire us to help them figure out that part. It starts with, well, what do you need? I don't care what your business is worth. That really is immaterial. What do you need it to be worth?
Right.
And when, so the timing, so the what and the when does that need to happen?
So what's that process like when is it like I'm in detective mode and I've got to figure out what the mess I'm dealing with first, and then, okay, come out of it. Now, here's
or is it usually mess, or is it like little things?
It certainly runs. Those are the goalposts. I mean, there's little things, and then there's a mess. And it's a really wide set of goalposts. So if you're talking about someone who's, say, 5 years away from when they would like to not be working anymore for money, we take them through a classic financial planning exercise where we look at, okay, well, what is the business doing for you financially? Get your W-2. What are your distributions? Okay, let's see your credit card statements. Oh, there's Netflix. There's your daughter's gas. There's, all these kind of things. And we just kind of add up. Okay, here's the benefit you're getting. Now, what do you need in terms of a pool of money, liquidity, that if reasonably invested can generate that return kind of automatically? And that's where we help them understand kind of a target value on their business. And then we go to work to say, okay, what are we dealing with right now? Like, what's the actual? And there's always a gap between what they need and what they have. But then we look at, okay, based on the gap and based on what's the specific, we call them value drivers, what literal financial things are going on in your business that you can control as an owner to help literally engineer your valuation higher. You will probably have to do some things differently. You might have to sell more stuff. You may have to do a couple of things, but we're going to know exactly what that is and show you how you can get there.
Do you have instances of like resistance to that where it's just like, I can't work with you because you're not doing anything I tell you to do?
Hopefully on the front end, if we've identified that this really matters to them, yes, there's going to be some pushback. But again, all we do is kind of say, well, okay, well, if you don't want any of this that you said was important, then fine, don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an adult conversation. It's like you can totally change your mind. You can totally be upset with me about this. That doesn't bother me. And you can totally change your mind on what you want. Did you change your mind? Well, no, not really. Okay. So what are we talking about? And
how much
I'm
money do I
truncating
need if I want, like, say, $125,000 a lifestyle in the bank? Or you mentioned like having the pool of money that supports your lifestyle. What's that number to support? They say families that are living on $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you want to get a little over that so you can live comfortably, what would be that lump sum goal number?
I mean, what we're trying to aim for an investment return of around 6%, after fees. So I guess you would divide that number by 0.06. But it's a little more than that. I mean, that would tell you today what you need. Now, we've all been experiencing inflation over the last couple of years, unlike the last 15 years. So the trick is based on your age now. And yeah, that 125, you know what that gets you now. Well, what's it going to get you in 5 years? So you've got to then run the exercise of inflating that need number for inflation, looking at life expectancy, looking at a lot of other things. So the present value, that's finance term, the present value would be dividing that number by 6%, and that's what you need right now.
Mm-hmm. The other factor is when those 4 boys get out of your house, you're going to need a lot less money, right? You're going to need a lot less house, right? Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. Like my daughter's 15, my son's already moved out, so now we've got about 4-ish more years of direct dependency for my daughter, where we're going to have to pay for activities and drive her around and feed her every day and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to need the house that we have now in 5 years. We're not going to need to have.
Oh yeah, you guys are going to be in a condo,
dude. We're talking about downsizing as far as possible.
Tiny home.
Can I find a house as big as this room right here? Put the kitchen over there. I sleep right here.
A tiny home on an acre of land, so you can have your chickens.
Yes, with a giant outdoor space. Where maybe even I have a kitchen outside. So I don't have to cook in the house. Anyway, but I love that. I love that idea of the planning, and frankly, it's something that I being 51, I'm looking down the barrel of it, right? I'm saying, okay, in 10 years, I'm probably going to be too tired to do what I'm doing right now, like carrying cameras around every day and setting up lights and doing all that stuff. I'm going to need to have a big staff that's going to do stuff for me, and I'm going to need to have all that stuff taken care of. And we're getting there. I mean, we're getting there, but we're not there to the point that it's generating enough, I don't know if you want to say savings or net profit to the point that I'm stashing stuff away, but we can invest, but it's not to that point. What's the thing that most people don't know about doing that would be good to know? So if I don't know how to do it, if I'm saying like, look, we're doing what we're doing, I'm not sure how to change what we're doing right now so that I can net $100,000 or 150 or 200 grand a year, to put away, what would you suggest to look at, or what would be the thing that I would need to think about?
Well, I think that, as a business owner, a lot of times you're in this trap of you're doing the business. And so if you're a service provider, like, you're probably good at the service. You could probably run a camera. You can probably run the edit board and all those kind of things, and you're good at it. And you may even like say, that's where I love to be. So you probably spend a lot of time there. That's how you were able to get the business off the ground. But at some point, a business owner has to learn about the business of their business. I mean, every business has what we call a business of your business. And that's all basically the money stuff, essentially. And you have to be a student of your own business. For most people, like, their favorite person is themselves. And that doesn't make you selfish. It's like people love to hear their own name. They're self-preservationists. I mean, that's part of the human condition. I still am a little amazed at how little sometimes clients, how they're just not a student of their own business. It's not where, hey, read this read this book, that tells you how to run a business, or read about someone you don't care about, or read this biography. It's like, no, this is like your stuff, dude.
Know your stuff.
Yeah. Just be interested in it. It's saying like, oh, okay, I know that I charge X and I've got these expenses and I do all these things, and, kind of doing it has nothing to do with, I'm not a math person or I'm not a finance person. I think I gave this talk recently. If you can do third grade math, like legit third grade math, okay, adding and subtracting, we're not even getting to multiplication and division, but addition and subtraction, that's 80% of business math.
Right.
It's just not that hard.
But there's an emotional component to it where you don't want to do the math because you don't want to see what the result is, right? And that addition and subtraction equals not enough.
We've all been there, including yours truly. And it's something that I stole from Bill, my mentor, my first boss in this. And I mean, the facts are your friends. You may not like them at first. It's like that friend, you met them the first time and they kind of rubbed you the wrong way, or, they had something for lunch and da-da-da-da-da. But you get to know them and you're like, hey, it's a good dude.
It's always better to know the facts.
It's better to know the facts. It's not about you falling in love with them. It is about you understanding them. They're yours. Okay. Yeah. And they are your friends. People get in trouble when they just, adult problems, we've all been adults long enough and had enough birthdays to know that adult problems don't solve themselves. They never, ever, ever do.
You have to go solve them.
Or yes. I mean, in most cases,
or they
yes.
break.
You have to take part in that solution.
Right.
Which in the case of most people for their businesses, it's just learning stuff about your own stuff. It's not going and taking a bunch of finance courses or reading 1,000 pages of business books. It's get into QuickBooks, get your CPA or your bookkeeper or yourself, and go
or your
in
business
there
partner
or your partner, and just say like, let's look at it, man.
Yeah. I think it's so hard to do sometimes too, because I think what ends up happening, especially when you get into a business because of kind of a passion for the business, is you just want to keep doing the thing, right? You don't want the numbers to get in the way of you doing the thing, right? And you're like, I don't care that I'm not making any money. I'm doing the thing that I want to be doing, right? And that's just such a it's such a mindset shift to just go, nope, we've got to focus on, financially supporting it, making sure that it makes enough money so that all of us keep doing it. Right. And to talk about the role of mindset, I know we talk about mindset a lot with different guests, and what is the role of mindset in this as far as like the way you're thinking about growth, or the way you're thinking about building up to the point that you can do what you want to do with your business?
Well, I think one, you have to have. So when we're talking to clients about this, you have to have a compelling enough view of the future or what it is you want to do that is funded by the activity of doing what you're doing in your business to push you along. And that's got to come from the client. We don't manufacture that. We don't try to plant those seeds. We spend hours in interviews with them, and often with their spouse. We have a house rule that if someone's married and they don't make their spouse available to us to talk to about these things, we will not take them as a client.
Interesting.
Because sometimes spouses work together. A lot of times they don't, but that spouse is the most influential person in the business owner's life, period. And they have to be on board with all the things that need to be done to get to the place where they say is out there in the future. And so we hear their side, we hear the business owner's side, we make them say it to each other. We are not counselors, we're not therapists.
It does feel a little bit like business therapy.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Is that like the difference between what you're doing and like business coaching, where like with business coaching, you're doing some similar things, but you're just saying, look, this is the state we're in. If we want to get there, these are the changes we got to make. And
and also I would say getting them to talk to each other.
Right.
Like sometimes spouses are hearing the other for the first time articulate some of these desires. We're just in the room writing notes, furiously writing and lobbing some questions to kind of keep it going, but we want them to really talk to each other.
Sure.
Have you ever had any like blow ups?
Yes.
Is that common?
What was the best one?
I think, well, it was, again, it's what makes most relationships blow up or uncommunicated expectations. And I think one time this guy, and it's always the guy, is saying that he wanted to move to a certain place, basically to the beach. And the wife really wasn't a beach person.
You got to get that together.
And so, she's like, we're not doing that. And he was kind of like, ha, 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 like, we're doing it. Anyway, John, so, what I was saying, and then she's like, no, like, we're not going any further here until we, and they kind of had a moment. And yes, it's awkward to sit in on that, but it was a breakthrough for them because they needed to, there was some new ground that had been plowed and they needed to work through it. Yeah. And there's nothing that'll blow up a plan that is unsupported.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people talk about SMART goals, the SMART. Well, I understand like that framework is fine, but a guy one time I was hearing give a talk on this added an S at the end for smarts. Mm-hmm. And that S at the end was for supported. Mm-hmm. He's like, you can have all of these, was that SMA or 5 letters, but if it's not supported by wherever that needs to come from, like he's like, it will not happen. And so I've taken that to heart in our practice to say, okay, spouses are included in this. If it's okay if you don't want that to happen, you just can't be our client.
Yeah. That's some big wisdom though, to think about the spouse, because it's also the most common business conversation you have is you're talking to your spouse about your business, right? Mm-hmm. And so if they're not bought in, it's a challenge.
I think spouses also, they unlike anyone else know the pressure that their special somebody is under all the time. Mm-hmm. They get all the ramifications of that. They get the stress and the worry and stuff like that, and a lot of times they feel it as well. And so having them be more aware that help is in the room, and people who've seen it before, heard it before, managed it before, gotten similar outcomes for their clients before, they're just glad that we're there.
Yeah.
And they're glad that their special someone has a professional also to lean on in addition to them as we don't try to take the place of a spouse at all.
That would be
But we
awkward.
do add that technical competence that needs to be there in addition to that unconditional support, and that's what makes it work.
Well, aren't most divorces, like statistically, most divorces
Financial or
are financial issues?
communication.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
And it's honestly like the things that my wife and I have had to, because we started our business together. So she's no longer in the business, but she and I started it together, and I started on her coattails. So she was a wedding photographer. So I started doing wedding videography as a like $100 add-on to photography, right? Just to have me something to do, right? So we started everything together, and we went through those years of, oh, we got to pay taxes. Like, oh, we got to pay sales tax. Like, oh, we've got to pay business personal property tax. I didn't even know what that was until I got a bill for it, and just no real advice, right? So we grew up talking to each other about this stuff because neither of us had any idea what to do. And I got that first sales tax bill. I mean, I went down to the Department of Revenue like, what are y'all talking about? I don't know, $2,000 in sales tax. And they say, yes, sir, you do. And here's the ordinance, or here's the statement that says, if you are a wedding photographer and produce a physical product, then you owe sales tax on the whole amount. And I went, oh crap, okay, so I got to do that. And those conversations were stuff we had. In the last 10 years since she's been kind of out of the business, we've talked about it a lot less. It's become a lot more like, this is my business, and it's become kind of mine and Brian's business, and she's not as directly involved in it, and that's a huge element that's missing. And making decisions and all that kind of stuff that she can give advice, but unless she's in it like that, it's hard to feel a part of it. So
Yeah.
that's an amazing revelation, I guess.
Yeah.
That y'all would include the spouse. That's really cool. Talk to me about Columbia. What you said you're from North Carolina. What brought you to Columbia?
Well, my first job, so I graduated, and like a lot of young people, moved to Atlanta, where our management training program was housed. Stayed there for about 7 months, I think, and then on kind of bid day, when you get your job placement, so you go through this thing, and really, in the late 90s, those kind of training programs were, across of finishing school, business school, etiquette, all kinds of things where they were really kind of grooming the next generation of leadership, sort of like business kindergarten.
Sure.
I wish companies did that now. It's, quote, expensive, but I mean, I think you get a better product out of it. Talking to you, Fortune 500. But I got moved to Columbia. So I got called in my manager's, training manager's office, and everyone's getting their assignments. And she's like, hey, I've got some really good news for you. You're the only person in the class that gets to make a choice. There were 2 groups that really wanted you, and we are going to allow you to choose. I was like, oh, cool. And earlier in the program, we got to put down like our preference for where we wanted to move. I did not want to stay in Atlanta. I didn't enjoy it. So I either wanted to go back to Raleigh, which is fairly close to where I grew up and closer to where I went to school, or Charlottesville, Virginia. So I'm like, oh, I get to choose between Charlottesville or Raleigh. Like, this is awesome. And so she slides something over to me. It's a sheet of paper, and she's like, it's 2 different business units, but they're both in Columbia.
Great.
And like even though I'm not a, quote, millennial, like a millennial, I was like, yeah, but I didn't put that on my sheet. So that's like that. I'm sorry. There's been a mistake here. My preferences were Charlottesville or Raleigh. And she's like, well, your job is in Columbia.
Yeah.
And
you get a choice, Columbia or Columbia.
Right.
Yeah. So you've been here for a minute. So
Yeah.
what's that draw? What keeps you here?
I think it's what keeps anybody in a place that they didn't necessarily choose to be in at first. And it's we say community now, but what it means is friends.
Yeah.
So I lived here for a year. My wife and I got married a year after that. She's from Chicago. I'm from North Carolina. We had no family here. We didn't go to school here. We had no real ties. And but we did the church we attended together. We met friends through that who were also newly married, and they're some of our closest friends today. It was almost 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a time kind of early on when we were first married, year 1, 2, 3, that at the bank I worked for, like moving to Charlotte would it be a pretty easy jump. And we talked about that, but just the closer we got to the people that we met through that church and just building our lives together as a husband and wife, building with our friends and watching them, and everybody's kind of growing up together. We got married pretty young. It just became home.
Interesting.
It's a good place to live. It's an okay place to do business, but we have clients in 15 states. So, you're not really limited by that, but it is a good place to live and to raise a family. It's an okay place to do business.
How do you market to the other states where you have clients in 15 different states?
LinkedIn is kind of our primary channel to get the message out, but we've only been doing that in earnest for 3 years. It's going on year 4. It's just word of mouth and just doing good work for other clients. Birds of a feather kind of flock together, and so business owners tend to know other business owners, and their networks are pretty varied. And it's just we've gotten a lot of referral business, but we've really pushed the throttle up on trying to just do more outbound marketing and things like that because there's more work to be done. We have more capacity. I love what we do, and I love the outcomes that our clients are able to get, and I just want to do that as much as possible.
Well, assuming those outcomes self-replicate too, the more you create outcomes, the more people hear about that and want outcomes like that. Right?
I mean, we have people now, especially a little more locally, they'll say, "Hey, I know you work with so and so. That's what I want. Like I want the blue.
Whatever it is that they did, that's what I want.
I want the Brian.
Yeah.
Know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of fun to hear what they think we do, based on what they talk to our client. And a lot of times they're not like far off, but it's funny to hear them articulate it.
Right. What they notice is the success. Yeah.
It's kind of what your brand is, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're not quite building pizzas, where it's like, hey, I want a pepperoni and mushroom. It's not quite like that. But again, those outcomes, that's what. If we sell anything, like I don't have a product on a shelf, we're a service business, so we're kind of selling an outcome.
Yeah.
And we try to be consistent with that. We try to be high quality with that and successful with that, and that begins to just kind of replicate.
Have you mapped out your exit plan?
Sorta. Exits can come in a variety of ways. So the way that I owned my business was from an untimely exit. I went to work for Bill in 2007. He died in an accident in 2012 with no plan.
Oh, goodness.
So
wow.
You talked about earlier about the cobbler's kids.
Yeah.
That was us. And so we had to really pick up all the pieces of a very broken business and put it back together again. That was around 2013 is when we finally got all that figured out. It took 18 months and a ton of money, a ton of stomach acid, and just a lot of needless pain because of just a lack of planning for that type of exit. So everybody's going to exit their business, either laying down or standing up. And not to make a joke out of it, but he left laying down.
Wow.
And you can totally plan for that. You can inoculate 95% of the financial risk in something like that. A lot of business owners choose not to
because they don't want to think about it.
But you don't want to think about it
Right.
either. And a lot of times, and apologize to the insurance community in advance on this, but it is so driven by the life insurance community to just go buy some life insurance. And it's so like, that's the last piece. You do need that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go buy that piece, but you need a lot of other things in place. And then you put the insurance on at the end. Mm-hmm. And so it's more than just the life insurance.
Wow.
So that's one form of exit. Yes, that's planned for. If I were disabled and unable to work, if I die with my boots on, so to speak, that's taken care of. You know, the exit that I want when I'm living, I haven't thought about that a ton. What I do think about is what makes my business valuable to someone else. And I am doing the things there, like recurring revenue, contracts, the things that build transferable value in my business.
Systems.
We're absolutely nailing that.
Yeah.
But I'm not thinking about a magic date. I'm not even really thinking right now about a target value for myself, as much as controlling what we can control in terms of making my business transferable to someone else. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tough one too, especially when a business like ours, where it's very personality driven. It's all about
a service business.
how hard I can hustle, you know, and it's a service business. So if we stop producing the service, the product's not going to keep coming out. And, you know, we've got to focus on those outcomes and articulating those outcomes for people, because it's much harder for us. You know, there's ROI in advertising, but if you're doing branding work or organic marketing work, there's not a lot of ROI. I can't say, hey, I generated $100,000 for your business this year or whatever, because what we did was raise your profile or, you know, make you feel more confident in what you're doing. So I think all of that's fantastic. That's good stuff. To talk about LinkedIn a little bit, I know you're one of the few people that I see on LinkedIn very, very regularly. And I'm on LinkedIn every day, but like I can't get to post every day, but I'm trying to post every day. But I'm seeing that you're posting at least every day. Mm-hmm. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, LinkedIn has been really, 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 really good to us. A couple of quick facts: I do not have a paid account.
Right.
I don't pay $1 to LinkedIn for my membership. I know that I can, and probably this year, actually, I probably will, you know, step up to a paid membership in LinkedIn. But when I first got started with this, actually, a friend of mine, you probably ought to have him on here, Matt Vady.
He's a friend of ours as well.
Taught me literally taught a LinkedIn class. Mm-hmm. And me and another person paid the $49, and there were I think two of us in there. This is the first one he did. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I learned from him was not about writing, but about target audience. I think, you know, social media is designed, you know, all the dopamine, like you want the approval, you want people to see your stuff. It makes you feel good. It's addictive, all that stuff. And we know a lot more about that now. But I went into it with the mindset that I'm only writing to two people. I literally developed a persona, a female persona and a male persona for my target client. Like the people that I really, really wanted to work with. There was a male and a female version. I have fake names for them, education, where they live. I mean, it's kind of creepy. It's like an imaginary friend.
We actually create those avatars for our clients.
Mm-hmm. And from day one, I started, like literally the first post I put out, I was only writing to, I think I picked the guy first. I was writing to Steve. Mm-hmm. And I only wanted Steve to see it, and I only wanted Steve to like it.
Right.
And the first 12 months was excruciating because only like 2 or 3 people, you know, you look at how many views. It never broke 100. It was just, but I liked it. I liked getting it out there. I have tons of client stories that I can repurpose and reconfigure and change the names and a few numbers, but the story's the same. And I would just write to Kim and Steve.
Yeah.
And then one day after about 14 months, I got a direct message from someone who had never liked a post or interact or commented on a post.
Sure.
They did follow me. I kind of started digging into followers, and I did find that we were linked. And they said, I want to hire you.
Nice. And that feels like wow, we did it.
So it worked.
But then I was like, well, hire us like for what? And I was so shocked, that someone just, there was no sales process. There was no, let me tell you about this, or let me ask you a bunch of questions. They're like, no, I've seen enough. Mm-hmm. I've read enough. I mean, I want to talk to you, and we exchanged numbers, and we got on the phone, and they're like, no, this is, what you write about is what I need.
Yeah.
And it was a Steve.
Nice.
And then 4 weeks later, the second one.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, the third. I mean, it literally,
so
it's like the floodgates open.
You went a year? Was it, how long?
14 months.
14 months.
Posting 5 days a week.
And I assume your LTV on a client is giant. Like
Yes.
it's getting one client is a windfall.
Yeah. We still only, like, our goal every year is about 7 to 8 new clients.
Right.
So we don't need to, bring in 100 people a year
Right.
or something like that.
This
That'd be
is what
nice, but we don't have a team big enough to
This
do
is
that
what we
right
tell
now.
people all the time. Like, you don't need 1 million people to see your content. If you had 100 people in the room, that would be too many people.
And as I've learned, it's like you actually, when you're a person like me, and this is why you're on LinkedIn, is to fight the good fight for your business. You want to make your content repulsive to most people. Mm-hmm. Not where you're being a jackass or but repulsive in that they're like, oh, well, I don't even know what he's talking about next. But the person that does know what you're talking about, you want to capture that attention.
Right.
And that's why some of the ways that I say what I say, like sometimes I'll use more jargon. Mm-hmm. And you might pose a question like, hey, what does this mean? Okay, great. Well, you're interacting. Sometimes I will de-jargon it to the point to where I feel like it's insulting to most people, and that gets a different type of response. And so I've learned how to play with it. But the key to LinkedIn, if you want to use that to further your business, it is one word and one word only, and that's consistency.
Yeah.
You have to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And the first year I was writing every day. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there were schedule tools out there, but then after about 18 months, LinkedIn put a native scheduler in LinkedIn. And so now I only post on Friday mornings, and I load up my posts for the rest of the week.
Right, and have it auto post.
Set a time and auto post. And that's one trick, I guess, that I use just to make the time more efficient.
Yeah.
Do you have a list in a notebook, like here are the topics I'm going to discuss this week, or what's that process for?
During the week, when an idea comes to mind, I've trained myself probably only in the last year to really write those things down and capture those ideas. The brain's really good for generating things. It's horrible for holding it in. And so to get those prompts to myself out, I'll jot them down. And then usually on Friday mornings when I've got my writing time set aside, I'll go back and that, a lot of times that's what I need, and it'll reprompt that. I've also messed around with AI a little bit where after my third year of writing, I write everything in Word and then copy and paste and get it into LinkedIn. So I had all my Word documents. I put them all into one giant document, fed it into Perplexity as my AI of choice, and said, hey, read this, use my voice, my words, and give me 5 posts on blank, blank, and blank. It does that really well, but you can still tell it's AI. So sometimes if I'm in a rush or I need to do even more advanced planning because I'm going to be traveling or something, I'll get an AI assist, let that get the body written, and then I'm going to go in and probably change half of what's written. But
Humanize
it's
it.
easier to change half than staring at the cursor blinking on a blank spot and just try to go.
Like, what am I going to talk about today?
Right.
Well, it's funny to hear that you learned from Matt Vady about posting on LinkedIn, because your posts and Matt's posts have very similar formats in the way that the text posts are done. That it's like, and I have learned recently that LinkedIn's algorithm favors text post over video post, which is one of the only platforms that does that. And so I've been experimenting with text posts lately myself.
I've been doing some vertical video.
Yep, I've seen that. And
again, I've got a bunch stockpiled that I can just toss out there.
Yeah.
So, I try to kind of mix it up, but more than anything, I do it Monday through Friday, and it's only to Steve and Kim.
Yeah.
Like those are the people I'm writing for. And sometimes I'll do some what I hate is I find myself like I might do a personal post on occasion. Like on Father's Day, I usually write about my dad, and that gets a ton of exposure.
We call that a top of the funnel post.
Yeah, and I get all excited about that, but then, my posts about, stupid EBITDA or, AR, accounts receivable or whatever, again, it's like, and I have to remind myself, like, John, that post was for everybody. And let's be honest, you probably wrote that for the juice,
Right.
I love my dad. I want to do that anyway, but you do like it when it's like 4,000 people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Totally.
What's the kind of main difference between your messaging to Kim and your messaging to Steve?
Not a whole lot. It's not gender specific, in other words, but what I have seen is I think this is true. Every woman-owned and woman-founded business we've worked with, she started that business where she was customer number one. Like the problem that she had, she solved it
For herself
in the way that she wanted to do it, in a way that was natural and within her gifts and talents and point of view. And then all the Me Too's popped up. And almost to a person, they never intended for that to become, quote unquote, a business. It's wild. Not to overgeneralize, but I think a lot of times a man will see something and to the effect of like, dude, we could crush it if we did blank. And it's not about solving that problem. It's about crushing it, like making a lot of money or, whatever. But for the women we've worked with, they were customer number one. They were the person with the original problem. They worked really, really hard to solve it for themselves, and somehow other people found out about it. Some of them had blogs where they were kind of old school bloggers, and they put it out there that they had done this thing, and it caught fire that way. One of our clients, someone who was at a gym that they worked out at, like literally looked over her shoulder and was like, "Hey, what's that?" And it was a notebook that she had designed or really embellished. She went to Michael's and bought some stuff and stuck it on a notebook, and that turned into a $10 million business. And I mean, it took a decade, but
voila,
stuff like that.
Notebook.
So for Kim, I know those things about our client base, and I'm kind of I like those kind of clients.
And this is part of what you're talking about, is like really being interested in the facts and understanding kind of what drives things. Our two are Stacy and Tyler.
Okay.
So we have two as well.
Mm-hmm.
Stacy is a marketing director, communications director, who's trying to hire for a job that's been given to her.
Okay.
And she's overwhelmed. She's got a lot going on. She's sharp. She knows her stuff. She really does a great job, but there's so much on her that she just needs somebody to take that off her plate and help her with it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's anytime we get hired to do a video about an award that somebody's getting, or a video about a charity drive or initiative that's coming out. Nonprofits, that's the big part of it. Very rarely get hired by an executive director at a nonprofit. It's almost always communication directors or marketing directors. Tyler is a business owner. So Tyler is the guy that is just trying to figure out, how do I do the whole business and do marketing at the same time? And it's almost impossible to do all of it. So yeah, we've broken that down that deep. Try to specifically talk to them. I haven't really thought about LinkedIn though. Weirdly, I haven't thought about LinkedIn posts as being that type of like communicating directly with Tyler or directly with Stacy, because I think those are. I'm not sure that they're on. I guess Tyler probably is on LinkedIn, but.
I mean, I think we would all be surprised at who is on. I think LinkedIn is one of those social channels that still has a high amount of utility.
Yeah.
And if you are in business, I mean, it's not just people looking for jobs. Mm-hmm. There's tons of business owners on there, and there's tons of high level people who are looking to hire folks.
Right.
And I would think with you guys as a visual, because so much of your work is visual, that's working for you on a medium like LinkedIn, is you can kind of display some of your work, but you've got to, if I could say this, I mean, you take your messaging and you're writing to her, and trying to take that burden,
Making it relevant,
trying to make it relevant and easy so that you get those DMs. But I think, again, I would tell anyone, like, you're going to get the DMs. It's going to take 10 times longer than you want it to take, but it's almost inevitable. If you really stick with it and you manage your time, and you start, like, most of my followers now fit those profiles.
Right.
And that's what you want. I mean, people think, oh, if I had 100,000 followers, well, I mean, 98,000 of them are totally irrelevant.
Right.
To what you're trying to do from a business standpoint. It's those 2,000 that you got to keep showing up for. And they might be on the channel every day. They might not be, but you got to be there.
Yeah, you got to keep showing up.
You got to keep showing up.
I mean, that's so important. Just being able to.
I mean, the first person that hired us on those posts, when I got that first DM, I mean, they said, like, I've been reading your stuff for like a long time. I'm like, how long? They're like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
I was like, really? They're like, yeah, like, it's really good. I'm like, okay, but what was good about it? They're like, well, I mean, it's like we would turn to each other. It was a husband and wife. They were business partners and had this great business. And they were like, we would just turn to each other and be like, how does he know, like, what we're thinking?
Yeah.
How does he know that we're worried about that? I mean, we were just talking about that yesterday, and then a post shows up.
Yeah. That is interesting. And most of your posts that I can see are very middle of the funnel. They're like, you already know this stuff. Let me teach you something about it. Let me show you how to do it, or let me show you how to think about it, or whatever, And so I'm kind of shifting on my LinkedIn. I'm going to do more bottom of the funnel stuff. I don't do hardly any bottom of the funnel. I don't do any, like, hire me, here's what I do. Right. I don't ever just say, hire
I think
me,
the algo sniffs that out. I think when you're using first person, it is looking for you sharing expertise, not trying to. And again, I don't know how it does that, but it seems to be pretty good at snuffing that out. And you'll see from time to time where people will put links to themselves in comments and do something. I don't do any of the algo tricking. I literally. But also, this is what I could say after writing for almost now 4 years, is I just go in there and I do my thing.
Yeah.
I just write my stories. I retell stories. I will, I've got a post this week that is coming out that is about it's based on a phone call I had with a person who doesn't even work with us yet, where they're in just a business jam. And their name's not in it, and there's not enough specifics. They might recognize themselves. I don't even think they're on LinkedIn. But I'm just going to I wrote a post about that and kind of what I think, and trying to kind of solve that problem. Because there is a lot of help to your point, I think you said earlier, Bill, about business owners, don't know what to do, or this, that, and the other. Well, I want to, like, there are some things that you can learn and pick up and be a little more business-like, if you will, in the business of your business.
Yeah. Well, and I recognize too that you post as John and not as Pendleton Street Advisors, because you recognize that the businesses don't do as well on LinkedIn. Ironically,
they don't. We have some outside help from a marketing perspective, and they maintain our corporate posts and keep those updated and fed and things like that. But we all know that the corporate posts are not going to be what drives people to hire us. It's going to be posts from me or other people on our team.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I'm always so inspired when I listen to John talk about business stuff. It's like it's inspiring, but it's also like, I have homework to do.
Well, that's really what it is. It's like I see it and I go, I really wish I could be that, but I know I'm not.
So, but I mean, why do you? I mean, both of you, like, what's frustrating?
It's not frustrating. It's the frustration is, I know I'm supposed to be doing what you're talking about. You're doing what you're talking about with success. Why? And then I'm looking back at myself and going, why aren't we doing what?
Why am I not doing?
Why
what
am
you're
I not
talking
doing
about?
it? And why am I not doing it? And then now I hear how you're doing it, so I'm like, okay, that's how I should do it. Now I got a ton of homework to do.
So,
Because we can do third grade math, by the way. We're excellent.
Yeah, you're
at
probably
third grade
super
math.
good at third
yeah,
grade
yeah,
math.
we can nail third grade.
I
math.
can even do multiplication.
Long division. I
You're
can do
at the
all of
fifth
that.
grade.
Yeah,
you're like, hey, I could bring a 5th grader level into this.
right.
But new math I can't do. Old math I can do.
I might be able to do fractions even. You know,
But Brian, I mean, going back to, so when our podcast that we did, it's on hiatus, but I interviewed a lawyer in town, Jack Pringle, and we talked about habits. He knows a lot about health and mental health, and even though that's not what he does as his day job, do it once. Just do it once. Do that thing you're supposed to do. Just do it once. Streak of 1. And then the next day say, I'm just going to do it once. I mean, really, like we think about, oh, this person's been doing that for X years, or, you know, and I don't know. There's some way maybe Oprah or one of these people puts it like you're looking at someone's today as your, you know, whatever. And it's like that's not the comparison. Like, just do it once. Like, do that right thing once, one day, and then forget about it. And then the next day, it's like, oh, I got to do that right thing. And just, I mean, that is how it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was writing, I would get up in the morning, I would write those posts, I would get it out there, I would try to follow this rubric or plan that I'd learned from Matt, because it was pretty good rails to run on. I didn't have anything else, and I would just get them out there. And I mean, literally nothing was happening, but I did at a point in my day when I wouldn't really do anything else. And I mean, why not? And I need to let the world know what we're doing, even though, I mean, we were getting a lot of we were getting enough referral business. But there's stuff I want to do, and it's all really expensive.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
that's a hard part.
And so I've got to, you know, we got to get more people in the door, and they just don't know that we're out there. And so, streak of 1.
I've taken up the habit of watching Kitchen Nightmares again, and I shouldn't watch it because I know it's exactly the same episode over and over again. But Gordon Ramsay fixes restaurants exactly the same way over and over again. And it's not just a formula for the show. I'm assuming that they're doing it to whatever effect in real life. But like, if you watch Bar Rescue or you watch Hotel Hell or you watch any of those shows where they go in and fix businesses, it's real simple. The food's got to be better. It's got to be delivered quickly. You got to get the owner's mindset right, you know, where the owner says, I'm not right all the time. I can, change things. You got to fix the decor. You got to dust and paint and all this kind of stuff. They do kind of yada yada over the renovations, which, I mean, they'll go into an old place and it's like it's 30 years old and they renovate it over the course of a couple of days or whatever, and they yada yada over the fact that it cost $200,000 to get them to that point or more that the restaurant would never have spent. But like, and then the line out the door, for opening night is always because they're shooting a TV show in there and they've invited all these people to come in the door, right? I get that.
Come in for a free meal.
But I get sucked in by it every time. And so
Gordon Ramsay will put 2 pieces of bread on your face and call you an idiot sandwich. Yeah, that's why they're there.
Exactly. So tell me about the podcast. What was the kind of idea behind that, and how did that get started?
So the idea was one of those pandemic ideas when you just had all this time on your hands, and there's just a lot of just general discouragement, I thought, being just blasted over the airwaves. And I just thought a lot about all the good things that I knew that were going on in people's businesses, or things they'd overcome, or just success stories. I'm like, somebody should be telling these.
Yeah.
Like, we have a whole lot of them. Let's do it. But I also wanted to do it in a way that looked good and sounded good. That was my criteria. And so that's why we recorded them on video as opposed to just let's do the audio version. It was also turned into a branding, not a marketing exercise, but a branding exercise for our firm to say that, hey, we're willing to make an investment a financial investment in making these look good and sound good. We tried to record them in different places. We didn't have a studio that we always set up in. Try to do them kind of on location that wasn't necessarily tied in with the guest. It was just kind of a visually appealing place. I think we shot 58 episodes of that over about 3 years, and it did its job.
Tell me about podcasts for businesses and sort of your opinion about that, because it's obviously a hot topic right now, especially. Why would a business want to do a podcast?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I mean, I think we wanted to do one because I really did want to get some good stories out there. I mean, thankfully we had enough margin in our business to where, we didn't do it per se to get new clients. We weren't measuring a linear ROI on that. And I really love businesses, and I love talking to business owners. And if someone would just pay me for that, that would be awesome.
People get paid to do podcasts all the time, so there's an exit plan for you.
Yeah, I love interviews, and I'm a connoisseur of interviews. And there was a way that I wanted to do each interview. I wanted to speak no more than 30% of the time, and let the guests spend more than 70, 80% of the time talking, because it's pretty rare that people get to actually tell their story. Quote, no one's listening, no one cares. There's so much of that out there anyway, and you just think, and it really does matter. I mean, I would have people come up to me and recite quotes from a guest on an interview that we did, and it was life-changing for them. Literally, it changed the trajectory of their life because they heard something that we got on camera or on the audio, and they made a change. I'm like, you should tell them that. They're like, I know, I don't know how to get in touch with them. So I'm like, here, who was it again? Okay, here's this person's number. You need to tell them that. I love that you told me that, but you need to tell them that.
And you're creating community almost, right? You're kind of doing something cool like that.
We talked about, and maybe this will be my form of accountability. We talked about after we got 40 or so episodes done, and we thought about everybody who had been on there, and they're on our website. You can go to our website and see all the episodes. How cool of a party would it be to have all those guests in the same room?
When we hit 100,000 followers,
be a brain trust. That would be
but just for even those people to meet each other. It's like if Bert Soren at Sorenex,
right?
And imagine him being in the same room with Dom Martin at Optus Bank,
right?
And just let him talk. Aaron Curtis at Soda City and Market Hall with Frank Kaysen, and just so maybe we'll do that. But that was something I always thought about let's just have a party, and it can be the guest and their plus one, and that's all it is. It's not really open. It's just we want all these people to now interact with each other.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll happen.
That's great. Well, John, this has been awesome. We talked for another hour, but I appreciate your time. Brian, let's do the 5 questions. We end up with 5 questions.
We end our podcast with 5 questions, just to kind of get to know you just a little more. So, what is your favorite TV show / sitcom?
Can I give 2 answers?
Sure.
Billions and Silicon Valley.
Okay. I was just about to tell you. Okay. I was going to say, and I said, you know what? I'm going to leave it out of this one. I learned everything I know about medicine from Grey's Anatomy. I learned everything I know about law from Suits. Mm-hmm. And I've learned everything I know about investments from Billions. It's not a good learning platform.
Hey, I could be a detective by watching Monk. So
yeah, there you go. I am through the 3rd season of Billions right now, and it's just awesome.
It is great TV.
Yeah, it is really, really good. I am with you there. I'm currently in it, so I'm more excited about it than usual.
What is your favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
Any flavor? or just any ice cream?
I mean,
as long as
if I'm in a grocery
cold?
store, Cherry Garcia,
Okay.
Ben Jerry's, but or if I'm in a town with a Jenny's ice cream, there's no ice cream like hers.
Nice.
That's nice.
All right.
What is your favorite song?
I really love music. Having a favorite song, Okay, I'll tell you a song that I remember the first time I heard it and how it made me feel.
Perfect.
I was in the 7th grade, and the first time I heard "A Whole Lot of Love,"
Nice.
I immediately went into puberty.
7
Yes.
Minutes of Heaven too.
Yes. I love that answer.
And it was on big speakers, and it was with some older kids in my neighborhood that had a Led Zeppelin tape. And when that song starts, something happened I changed.
Nice.
It's probably more than you want to know. She's
No, that's perfect.
laughing back there.
That's perfect.
What is your favorite season?
My son and I were literally talking about this last night. I don't have one because as I've gotten older, like he said summer, like he's 16, and there's stuff living here in Columbia because we have 4 seasons. There are things that I love about each one, but they're just different. I love the heat in the summer. I love it when it gets cold. I love the change in the air in the fall. I love the smells in the spring. Like I can't pick one.
Nice. That's a good answer.
Well, the final favorites is, what is your favorite fictional character?
Oh, all right. Let's go. I think his name was Aragorn from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah, I love Aragorn. I have tried to watch. So my daughter is 15. She's a nerd, and I felt like as a nerd, she needed to watch Lord of the Rings so that she gets the lore, right? Not for the movie, but just so she understands when people make jokes. Like we're watching Big Bang Theory right now, and they make tons of Lord of the Rings jokes, and she doesn't get them because she's never read the book. She hasn't seen the movie. So we tried to watch the movie, and she fell asleep, which never happens. She never falls asleep during a movie. She fell asleep and I fell asleep, and we both woke up like 3/4 of the way through the 3-hour movie. And we're like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't want to try this again, but at least she got a little bit of the lore. So yeah, I'm with you. That's a good one.
I think my bold prediction about that. I love Lord of the Rings. I love that kind of story, but I think Dune is going to become the current generation's, like, those stories are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the books are great.
So layered.
But the way they're doing the new movies,
Yeah.
that's my prediction.
Yeah.
That'll be the current generation's Lord of the Rings.
That's awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.
This was great.
Yeah,
Good
thank you for
conversation.
having me.
Yeah.